Well, howdy, y'all, and welcome to another high-powered episode of the most electrifying show on social media, the High Voltage Live Show. I'm your host, Willie Snyder with Nat King Code. I am joined by the amazing creator of the Volt Online Academy, the greatest learning platform online, period. And James Stallcup is with me, and a really awesome podcast for you. We have got planned out. I really appreciate everyone on NEC for Dummies. 19,000 this week. Like, we're just growing leaps and bounds. We're gonna be 20,000 quicker than you can think. And then I really appreciate everyone for participating in the Myth of the Week this week. We have a great one planned out for you, and I really appreciate everything you're putting together for us, James. And it's really cool that you could bring like your learning platform in there. And I want to thank all the people for joining us that were watching the Mike Holt live stream today. I was watching too. It was pretty interesting. A lot of stuff that we learned about the 2023 code change cycle. And it's pretty awesome that you're going to have that book out. And did you have to make too many changes in it? Or did we actually get to see the actual first or
if you go to NFPA link, the 2023 is already up, and
okay.
I was looking at it today. Where we like it because we can go in and make sure all of our sections and everything's ready. So we're looking at probably about we're looking now about the end of September coming out with it because we need to make one of the reasons because the Standards Council still hasn't put out the final say so on it, so we got to make sure what happened there.
All right, what up? Joining us, thank you. Sorry, it says Facebook user. It's weird; it doesn't show whose name it is on there, but
yeah.
Welcome for joining us.
But yeah, we're checking that right now, and I hope to hear some information back on it. But apparently, looking at some of the posts that's going up, co-making panel 2 got their hands slapped pretty hard, so we're going to discuss that tonight.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I mean, it's hard because it's just, I guess they push so hard to try to expand that Class A protection, and it just gets to the point, and especially like when I was listening to that with Mike on some of that like boat yards, marinas, stuff like that. That's already like pretty much selectively coordinated through there.
That's
so
right.
It's kind of hard to just throw a whole bunch of just random Class A stuff in there. So I'm glad that the Standards Council did what they did and just got it to kind of level the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what they did, but from the sound of it, they're not happy with or the code-making panel's not happy with what they did. Now, I have a feeling there's some other things that might have happened.
Well, we saw that it looked like Mitsubishi had a seat on the table.
Yeah, we're going to discuss that.
All right.
I just can't quit laughing. And when that post come out, we've been going over this over a year and a half now, and I was the first that told them no.
What's up, brother?
It's not an outlet. And I said, it's a termination. I got attacked left and right. And soon as that, I'm not even going to say his name, but as soon as he made the post, then all of a sudden you could see on our site and their sites, it just blew up. And then the attacks started coming out left and right. And so I'm just telling everybody that's round 2. Round 3's coming up, and we get the Standards Council and see what they exactly said.
Yeah, and I'm gonna work as hard as I can with the state of Colorado and try to see if we could get it like amended or just taken out for the 2023 because it's just gonna be too hectic. Like if being an installer on residential areas, it's gonna be really hard to sit there and go, okay, well, this one has a compatibility issue and this one doesn't, and there's no inspector that's going to want to deal with that. So
sure.
They basically said it's any unit with the freak drive. Well, what we're getting into is a lot of these units are coming out more and more with these freak drives, and so that freak drive is actually having a little bit of leakage current, and so that's causing some problems. And they said basically, I was talking to a state inspector. He said anything with a freak drive doesn't have to have GFCI. Well, that's going to be really hard to pick and choose. And then you just kind of have this standard that's kind of wonky. But I don't know. We'll get going on the myth of the week. And
Ready? All
yeah.
right. Let me cue this sucker up then. Here we go.
It's time for Myth of the Week.
All right, awesome. I really love doing the myth of the week every week. Have all kinds of people come up on the job site and ask me like, "Hey, what's the myth this week?" And so it's pretty cool. And I kind of question them, and almost always, I think we got 100%. So really good class of smart people this week. I just want to clarify one of my comments from the last thing that freak drive is what I refer to. It's a VFD, a variable frequency drive. And what it is it's a way for the motor to ramp up. What they do is they limit the frequency to the motor, and then that helps the motor ramp up slower. And what it does is it extends the motor life, and it also creates a lot less inrush current in your system, and then it helps your motor start and stop with like less inrush, and so you're going to use less current, and it's just going to be a lot more efficient design. But it's a real big compatibility issue with GFCIs is what we're finding out. So this picture right here is pretty funny. Sent it to me. The person that sent it to me didn't want to be mentioned, so I was like, "That's cool. I know how you feel. These guys will probably attack you if they found out who you were." But anyway, this is actually a code violation. These crimp connectors are not listed for solid. It looks like that to be solid. I don't. That could be stranded, but to me, that MC cable looks like it's going to be a solid conductor, and typically those crimps are not rated for a solid conductor. And then I doubt that the receptacles themselves or the devices in that are rated for use with those crimp splices. It's been a common practice for people to use those on stranded wire, which is probably fine as long as the device is listed, which is a 110.3b violation. If you don't have the right devices, which I believe there's one brand of Hubble that I know for sure is listed for use with those fork terminals. I'll be honest, I just installed a contactor and I used them. That's what I used, and
Mm-hmm.
it was number 10 stranded wire, and I felt it was a better connection to use number 10 stranded wire with those fork terminals onto the contactor than it was to actually just put the stranded wire underneath the terminals. So if it would have had a clamp style, like a vice style compression, I probably would have just landed the conductor directly underneath the contactor. But I just felt it was a better install to use those fork terminals. And I feel you can make that judgment call. The inspector thought it was fine. So I passed. So it wasn't like they're going to fail you for stuff like this.
Sure. When I was looking at the comments, I was getting ready to put all this together, which I actually did this afternoon because I've been so busy with everything else. And I just sort of breezed through the comments and was looking at a couple of things. And I was like, when you're really getting into this, you're looking at it from a 110.3b listing labeling issue. And then,
yeah, welcome in. Jake Riddle had a good comment. He said fully insulated female spade. So yeah, that's probably what they are. I mean, I've seen them both ways. I believe the fully insulated female spade was what I used on the auxiliary contact side, which was the where it just goes onto a male terminal. But then what I was using on the other side of my contactor was actually, they were like a fork style. So they were a fully insulated fork style spade connector. So thanks for correcting me on that, sir.
Sure. And you know, when you're looking at that 110.3B, uh, what you really also, you know, just to sort of help finish tying it in, go over and look at 110.14. That's where you pick up your electrical connections and everything, and it talks about different things here, and it doesn't get into specifically talking about a certain type, but it's talking about that they shall be properly installed and used.
Right.
And it talks about the different characteristics of the dissimilar metals and stuff, and whether the devices are pressure terminal or pressure splicing conductors. I'm sorry, splicing connectors or soldering lugs. So it just sort of goes through and ties all of this together, lets you know what you're looking at. And then I decided when I was looking at this, I thought, well, let's just look, because then you can come over and you can also look at your terminals here too, and you'll
Right.
start to see it. It just basically ties it all in. And
Well, yeah, I wouldn't have even thought about 110.14, to be honest. When I was doing the myth of the week, I was thinking about 110.3B, but you are correct. This actually absolutely applies,
yeah,
because if you're not reading the manufacturer instructions, then you could have all kinds of things. You could have dissimilar metals. You could have all kinds of things that are actually deterioration of your connection, which is going to lead to heat and carbon buildup, and then lead to a failure on that connection.
sure. And it's like I always tell apprentices when they're getting started and everything. When you come over and you look at Article 110, remember those are a lot of your general requirements, and they apply throughout the code. And that's where you'll start picking up, you know, like terminations, working clearances, things like that. And
Yeah.
this is a good example for them, and lets them understand that you need to come over here and look. If you got terminations, you got terminals, you got splices, things of this nature, even your temperature characteristics for the conductors and the splicing, all that, it's all right here.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because I would have never thought about working clearance happen to be like calculated with your approach boundary. And you know, like, to me, I never really thought about it. I always just measured.
Mhm.
And the thing is, you have to kind of look at it through a different set of glasses when you're going into that. And I thought that was really interesting. You taught me a lot about that, because I would just say, oh, that's a violation, and then it's like, oh yeah, what's your clearing time? You know what I mean? And I would have just been like, what? So it's really nice that we're bringing these other 70E. I want to give a big shout out to the NEC Live guys. They did a NEC 70E presentation on yesterday. I thought it was really good. And
Yeah, I liked it at the end. You had asked that question, which I came in, you had tagged me on about if apprentice could work on something energized. And I told him, I said, let me explain this. 70E doesn't care if it's apprentice, journeyman, master. We specifically tell you you have to be qualified, and then we have training requirements that says you can have in the classroom, on the job, or a combination of the two. And then you have to do that by the definition of qualified, which is in Article 100. And Corey said exactly what I said,
uh-huh.
and I was glad to hear him say that, because there were some who told me I didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a interesting thing, because I think what got kind of muddled a little bit in the whole conversation is that, like, they said, oh well, should apprentices be working live? And to me, the simple answer is no,
Mhm.
but the complex answer is yes. They should be involved in that process. They should know how to suit up. You know what I mean? Are they going to be working live, or are you just going to show them how to put the suit on? You're like, okay, well, this is what you're going to be doing, And then you're showing them, hey, here's how you suit up. Here's the proper way to dress. Here's you could be a rescuer. You could be, involved in numerous parts of the lockout tagout that you could get their lock on it. You know what I mean? So the whole thing is that you're getting them involved in the. I'm not saying that as justified energized work being locked out, but I'm just saying there's different parts to the different programs that from 70E that you could get these apprentices involved in, and then they could be a little bit smarter when you go to do that actual procedure. They can, and then they could move up to the point where you can go to your boss and say, hey, this dude can work live, and
It's just like I told the one guy.
and it's up to the employer, but I'm just saying, like, we have all our apprentices are 70E trained, so
Sure.
technically all our apprentices are qualified, but I wouldn't say they're qualified to work energized, justified energized. And there's a lot of reasons that I would be approving that justified energized based on somebody's qualifications of how I see them out in the field. And Jake Riddle has a good one here. Term bar, contact device receptacle definition has language. Contact device.
Oh, I know what this is about. That was Justin's post on
Yeah.
dummies.
Yeah.
I understand what Justin is arguing, and what it comes down to. Go pop that back up there because I want to point something out. What it is, it's the second sentence that is for receptacle. Along as we were covering an outlet, I remember I had a discussion on there. Brian Rock was telling me that the load side of the disconnect was outlet, and I told him no, it isn't. And I said the reason is because if you go look at a disconnecting, leave that up there. Did it just pop off on its own?
No, I took it down. No, sorry.
Okay, yeah, leave it there while I'm going through this.
Yeah, all right.
So, I said, if you go look at the definition of disconnecting means, it says a device or group of devices, and then you go pick up what a device is. And you go to the expanded content, it starts telling you like receptacles, switches, circuit breakers, and stuff like that. And I said, if you're going to say the disconnecting means outlet, then I can say at the circuit breaker that's a disconnecting means. He goes, you're just twisting the words around. I said, no. I said, you cannot pick and choose when you want to apply it. I said, you can't do that. I said, so I can twist this any way I want by exactly what the code says. So then when you go look at the definition of receptacle, the second sentence is what gets in there, and it talks about a contact device designed for direct connection to mate with corresponding utilization equipment. Now, what that's getting into is he was saying, if you go over there, if I go make contact with a device like a receptacle, that's where I'm going to cord and plug something in, and that's where the receptacle's installed at the box, which is the receptacle outlet. Okay. And that's why we got two different definitions there for a receptacle and receptacle outlet.
Yeah, and this has a really good point where it says the contact device, which I believe the contact device would be the female side of the receptacle where the male side of the male cord end plugs into. That's why they check like tension on it and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, what it gets into is what he's saying is where you come in and you take and you come into an AC unit. He goes, if I take and I'm go to a terminal bar, or I come in and I go and use wire nuts, he said that's a receptacle. That's what Justin Gibbs was telling him. And of course, everybody was arguing about it on there. And I said, where that's coming in from is he's saying that the wire nuts terminal is a contact device. Okay.
Right.
And he goes, if that's where I'm making contact with the conductors that are coming in, it's not an outlet, it's a receptacle. So that's
Right.
where the argument's coming in.
Yeah, and Jake's saying that direct connection, that sounds like hardwired on that.
Direct connection to me is a termination. That's what I've always said it was. It's a termination. I don't classify it, and I've actually made that argument before with them. You might not remember this because about a year and a half ago. And I said, well, look at that second sentence of receptacle. I said, if you want to go there, I said, I can just say, if you're just going to classify over there and just say the outlet just exists in an infinite location now, then I can say a receptacle's there and call it a contact device. Show me anywhere in the code it doesn't say it isn't. And that's
Yeah.
where the argument came in. And they
Right.
got really mad at me over that. They go, oh, you're just twisting words around. I said, no, I'm not twisting anything around. I've maintained through this whole thing that there's a termination there. And
Right.
there's no outlet. That's my opinion. I mean, I don't care if anybody agrees with me or disagrees
Well,
with me.
well, it was funny because I was watching Mike Holt's thing today, and he said this like a lot of times. Like he said, that's where the utilization equipment connects to an outlet. And he said that's where the branch circuit connects to the outlet, and that's where the utilization equipment connects to the outlet. What I'm saying is that does not exist on a hardwired, because it's saying that the utilization equipment connects to an outlet. Okay, well, where's the outlet? Because that's what I mean, I'm not saying there is no outlet. I mean, there's an outlet somewhere, but what I'm saying is from their own substantiation saying that it's where the AC condenser connects to the appliance outlet. That's what it says.
Mm-hmm.
And and it says that a lot in like boat yards. It said that a lot. It's that whole same language is maintained through a lot of different things. And so if you go into like marinas and boat yards and all that stuff, that's all selectively coordinated from GFPE all the way up to Class A with Class A protection. And
I was talking to Dad about this a while back, and he said, he brought it up right away. He said, well, let me put it to you this way. He goes, I've been doing this a long, long time. And he said, there's a reason that they have a definition for branch circuit, general purpose. And he said, appliance branch circuit. And he said, individual. He said, the reason they put them in there because they're trying to explain what that branch circuit's for. And if you look at the definition for an individual branch circuit going over, it says it goes to hardwired equipment or utilization equipment. It goes to utilization equipment. It doesn't say it goes to an outlet. And the thing that gets me is they come in and one of the guys said, well, it doesn't matter if it's an individual branch circuit, it's still a branch circuit. No, if you're just going to say that, then just use the definition branch circuit.
You could either delete the definition branch circuit or you could delete the definition outlet. And Jake Riddle says outlet spelled backwards is energy to be let out. So, that's funny.
That's a good, and I like it, Jake. 2 thumbs up, brother.
Yeah. But the whole thing is that, and it's funny because I've talked with a lot of these guys about this, and I said, okay, let me take a dryer that's in a laundry area. Now I hardwire it to let's just say we do a breaker with a lock on it I think it's 110/15, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we go put a breaker lock on it, and then we run a hardwire into that dryer. Does that remove the GFCI protection? And they're like, yes, because the GFCI protection is for the receptacle outlet. It's not for the actual, it's not for the utilization equipment itself. And so that's where we kind of pointed out a little bit of the language problems. And I think that's what we're going to cover for the topic of the week. And I think it's a good one.
Yeah. That isn't that considered picking and choosing?
Yeah. But they all said that removes the requirement for GFCI protection if you hardwire a dryer in a laundry area, because now they're saying that dryer, the back of that dryer, is not an outlet.
No. One of the things they brought up to me was about the dishwasher. and Tom Michaels called me out specifically and said, "I bet he says GFCI protections for the dishwasher." Yes, I do, because if you go look at 210.8D, it specifically, well, in 2023, it specifically calls out there. But this was an argument I made a long time ago. I said it also takes right there and refers you to where 422.5A and B. And when you go over and pick up 5A, that's where it's listed as a dishwasher. And then B tells you the type of protection, the different ways you can protect it with GFCI protection. But you want to know the interesting thing, when you go over there and pick up 422, what does it deal with mainly right there?
Well,
connected.
What I thought was interesting is it says you could either protect it at the branch circuit or you could protect it at the outlet. Well, if all outlets end at the branch circuit, then why you wouldn't have to mention both of them?
That's right. It's what how long have I been making that argument?
Yeah.
I said, if you're going to say it's an outlet anyway, why even recognize providing GFCI protection for hardwired equipment? Because it's an outlet anyway, isn't it?
Well, yeah,
you're twisting words around now. It's like,
yeah, and I would think that if they were considering an AC unit, an outdoor outlet, that it would be referenced in 440.3 to say, look at all these different references to bring it together. Like code making panel 17 should have that in there in 422.5 as HVAC equipment, as listed equipment if it's covered under 210.8F.
Well, did you see one of my comments where I told them look at 440.3 and how it references the different areas, but it never references 210?
Yep.
And they just ignored that, didn't even answer.
Yeah.
That. Anyway,
and we'll get into it with the topic, and I'm approving your good intro this time.
Cool. All right, let's start it. All right. Now, looking at topic of the week this week, what I did, this had got sent over to me, and I actually got tagged on this. And I'm not going to say who posted or anything. I sort of blocked that all out, and I fixed the text up real nice where it could be read and everything. And basically what they posted here, this has to deal everything with apparently what has taken place at the Standards Council. Now, what I think has happened up to this point, I think that co-making panel 2 has been sent the stuff and they know what has happened here. So and I'm going to address all of this point by point all the way through this. Now, the first thing it talks about, it says apparently the HVAC industry didn't want the actual experience-based proposed TIA logs number 1656 and 1657, and instead appealed and overturned these in favor of their own proposed TIA logs numbers 1653 and 54. And it says, based upon those numbers, 53 and 54 fell in ballots by one vote. NFPA Standards Council decided to issue proposed TIA logs number 53 and 54 instead of the consensus ballot passed 56 and 57. Now, I'm just going to stop there just for a second. Let me explain.
Okay.
Now, first and foremost, for him to post and say experience-based proposed, let's talk about that for a second. Okay. Now, there was a discussion that took place, and it was between me and one certain guy. And he specifically said, and I took screenshots in case he comes on here posting on this, and I'll show him where he said it. He said that they had a group as put together of GFCI manufacturers, and the GFCI manufacturers determined that uh, the GFCI protection needed to be provided. Now, let me first say this. You had a group that you put together, and
So,
this
so
little,
was it put together by CMP2 or was it put
yep,
together by the Standards Council?
well, I'm going to get into that in just a second.
Okay. Okay.
So, co-making panel 2, they had this group, and it was a GFCI manufacturers, and the GFCI manufacturers determined that GFCI protection needed to be provided due to leakage current. And from what I read, the way it was submitted to me, there was no HVAC manufacturers, anybody on this committee. Okay.
Okay.
So based on that, which I would say there's a bias there first and foremost. And then for him to say that the HVAC industry didn't want the actual experience based. Well, let me say this. For you to make that statement, that shows bias right there. And I'm going to tell you why it shows bias, because co-making panel 2 in the 2020, we later found out that the HVAC people, they had submitted a cam that went in and showed, first let's sort of do one thing here. What caused this in the first place? Co-making panel 2 decided that we needed GFCI protection based on one death. That's what it was all based on. And
Well,
it,
and it was a very tragic death. I
it is.
will give
Let
them
me,
that.
I'm gonna get in that. So
Okay.
it was a tragic death, but
Mhm.
but things like that happen. But it wasn't based on because GFCI protection or anything wasn't provided. What it was based on was an improper installation. They
Yeah.
had 20 foot of seal tight there with no equipment ground. Of course, it got up underneath the AC unit. The kid jumped on it, smashed it, and that's what caused it. Now,
And they were using the seal tie as the equipment grounding conductor. So once it smashed it, they lost the equipment ground.
that's right.
And that wasn't mentioned in the beginning when this boat went down because I was totally behind it.
Right. Now, when you went in and you looked at the cam that came in, the guy, he was from Mitsubishi, and he went in, he showed there's 4 deaths per year, and 3 of them is because people were working on the AC equipment in an improper method. Another was due to an installation. Okay.
Right.
Then, based on consensus, that there's an average of around 750 a year that would die to heat if the AC unit wasn't working. Okay. So you're looking at putting these GFCI devices on there that have compatibility issues, first of all, that's going to cause tripping. And I brought that up, that the new UL standard that's going to be coming out is at 10 milliamps. It's not compatible with a Class A GFCI device. And they told me I didn't know what I was talking about. All of this is going to be taken care of for the 2023 code. And I said, no, it isn't. I said, y'all don't know what you're talking about. And sure enough, where are we at now? It's not going to happen. Okay.
Right.
Now,
Dude, I like the
I'll-
one where it says, give HVAC manufacturer Mitsubishi a new seat on CMP2. I was like,
I'm about to
boom.
get to that. Now, in the 2020, when they put the TIA out, they were, now this is what gets me. The Standards Council made the recommendation that the GFCI manufacturers, co-making panel 2, HVAC manufacturers all get together to work through this and everything. And co-making panel 2, apparently, from what I can tell from reading that and what he posted to me, decided they didn't need the HVAC manufacturers. The GFCI manufacturers would handle this. That's the way I'm sort of viewing this now.
Yep.
Okay. Now, then it goes in and it talks about the ballot that passed, and it says both with an expiration effective date of September 1st, 2026. Okay. Now, that's where I take issue right now, because I thought all this was going to be taken care of in 2023.
Yeah, that's
And
a really weird thing because if it was me, I wouldn't give somebody a tight deadline on something that you impose on them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it wasn't their fault. I mean, like, okay, do you really think that VFD leaking current on the equipment ground is a hazard if the equipment ground's solid and installed correctly and inspected and everything's good?
Say it
Do you
again.
really do you do you really think it's a really big hazard for an HVAC unit to have, like, say, a freak drive or a VFD that's leaking current onto the equipment ground if everything's
No,
installed correctly?
no.
So that's where we're coming from. And then all of a sudden we find out that this is all based, which a lot of GFCI stuff, like everything pretty much that's Class A protection is issued from dead bodies. Every like a garage door opener, that's a dead body. I mean, you think, okay, that GFCI is way up high. I plug into it and it's way up high. Nobody's going to touch that. Well, what happens if your garage door rails get energized? There was a little kid that died from the energized rails of a garage door. I agree
Mhm.
with that. You know, there's little kids that's died from freezers being energized because of no equipment ground or whatever. I
Yeah,
agree with that. There's a lady and her daughter that died from the dryer. That's why dryers are required to be GFCI protected in dryer area. I agree with that. You know, like this one is I don't agree with because I feel this is a unicorn. I feel that AC units should be their own demon. I think
yeah,
they should be their own equipment. And the whole thing is, in this case, I think that inspector should have lost his job over malpractice.
sure. I think so
Whatever.
too.
I think that inspector inspected it, said, "Oh yeah, you could use a 20-foot piece as equipment ground. It's not going to do anything." And then this kid dies, and now they're like, "Oh, now we need GFCI protection." I totally disagree with that.
Yeah. Well, this gets interesting because this thing goes through a lot of stuff here. And then he says TIA 23 3 will be incorporated in the first printing of the 2023 NEC and will therefore be in what's adopted locally by jurisdictions. TIA 2019 will require jurisdictions that adopted the 2020 NEC either as is or with now superseded 20-13 would have to adopt 20-19 by distinct legislative regulatory action. Wow. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it, what have I always say? It just writes itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the bullet point. This is interesting. Give an HVAC manufacturer, Mitsubishi. Now, the reason I'll put this on there is that's the guy that submitted the CAM that they rejected, and then this, co-making panel too, how he doesn't know what he's talking about. And now he's going to be on their committee.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make this up.
I think it'd be awesome if we have him on our show. Just doing a reach
Yeah.
out to Jeremy Tidd.
But it says a new seat on co-making panel 2. Now, this is the part that gets me. And require that co-making panel 2 restore NFPA Standards Council upset membership interest category balance by soliciting for new members for other interest categories. Well, I
Yeah.
wonder who that could be.
Well, why
Electric
would you
service
want other?
equipment.
Why would you want other interests on your panel to make all your stuff compatible? Like, why would you want that? I mean, because the other cam that came up in that I thought was interesting, electrical vehicle service equipment.
For
So
sure.
they were trying to do an exception for that.
Well, the thing that gets me is them going in and they're talking about here. Remove that comment for a second. It says and require that co-making panel restore NFPA standards councils, and this is what gets me, upset a membership interest category balance. Now,
Yeah.
What are they trying to say? Are you trying to say that you're upset co-making panel too, or are the standards council's upset because you don't have a balance on that committee?
So what that means is that he's trying to say that the standards council upset an already balanced panel. And
Oh no, they didn't.
what I'm saying is that they basically felt that it was out of balance. That's why they
That's
felt they
right.
needed a AC manufacturer. Jake Riddle just posted that. I'm sorry to interrupt your thing, but I know he was talking about the boat marinas and docking facilities. There's a lot of code changes in there. We'll get to those eventually, but they were really good. That was a hot topic in Mike's discussion as far
Were
as.
they talking about the special GFCI and all that?
Yeah, there's a lot of them in there. I mean, a lot of that stuff selectively coordinated, but there was a lot of gray areas in there. And then Mike ruled that a lot of the stuff that he did was not appropriate for like producing and putting out there for a code change. So I was sitting there thinking, man, should we call our podcast the Inappropriate Podcast, because we talk about the things that are inappropriate? Because to me, I mean, it is. Jake Riddle has a good point. There was a lot of boat marina changes that just were like head scratchers. Like they just didn't make sense. Like all that stuff's already selectively coordinated through GFCI protection, just through GFPE and GFCI protection. And it was there was a lot of head scratchers in there. There was a lot of just not really there was just a lot of changes that just didn't make any sense. They changed it. It was like they changed it just to change it. Like there was a few changes, a few of the public inputs that I really liked, where they said, so there's one of them that said no swimming because they didn't have the correct personnel protection for that swimming area. And then we're like, why does it just say no swimming? Why doesn't it say not enter the water too? Because you never know if some guy's like, oh, I'm not swimming. I'm just going to check on my boat motor. You know what I mean? And so then that would be something that I would think would be important for, like, if you're at a marina, because guys like, oh, I'm not going swimming. I'm just going to check on my propeller, or check on my prop or whatever. And then he's in that danger zone where, they don't have that detection.
They've clarified a lot over in datum planes and stuff like that. And then what they did, which I sort of thought was a pretty good job, the special GFCI and everything, they have that at a setting of 20 milliamps. That's just a round number they use there. And then the reason they did that is to clarify it from just a regular Class A GFCI device. And I didn't listen to the podcast, but hopefully they explained that, didn't they?
Do you want to know why they're mad about that one?
Why? I mean,
So a special GFCI can be dialed. And
that's right.
So you can use a GFPE and you could dial it down to 20 milliamps, and that's code compliant.
Did they explain that with the difference where you have an A, B, C, D, and E?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I've already argued that with our little friend that hates me now. But the whole thing is that basically a Class A has to be a Class A. You can't. So a GFPE can dial down to 6 milliamps, but that doesn't comply with the code language. Now with special purpose GFCI, you can do that. The reason they don't like that, and I kind of agree a little bit, which, there has to be a way to like lock it into that 20 milliamp thing, is you could turn it back up to 50, or you could turn it back up to 100, or you could change it.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing I see where they're coming with it. But the reason they're mad is because you can use a GFPE device and dial it down to 20 and pass code. And to me, I think that's fine. And I think that should be a supervised condition. I think they should, have there's so many things when you go into pools, marinas, all this stuff gets inspected constantly. They should have that in their inspection checklist to check the milliamp rating of the device, and test it. It's got to be tested every so often anyway. So that's another thing that comes into it, if you're testing it and it doesn't function, then it's got to be replaced or repaired or whatever. And it doesn't matter about the milliamp ratings. I mean, I agree that the life safety is very important. I think it's a very important topic that comes to, everything. But I feel AC units are a safe piece of utilization equipment that don't have any, like, very little problems. Like, if you have poor installation, yeah, they're gonna kill people.
Sure.
If
And that brings us right into the next part of this, because what it says, until September 1st, 2026, the proverbial ball of Class A GFCI protection at dwelling unit HVAC is now in Standards Development Organization, UL's court, to address compatible leakage current limits and their outdoor product standards rather than the NEC's court. First of all, let me teach you something on this. The person that wrote this, NEC does not dictate how the HVAC equipment is designed.
yeah,
It's a listed and labeled piece of equipment by UL, and for you to even make this type of statement that the NE out of the NEC's court, I'll tell you what you did. You tried to dictate something to a piece of equipment that wasn't compatible, and now you're saying we're going to kick the proverbial ball got kicked down the road. It didn't get kicked down the road. It got put at the spot it was meant to be in the first place, and taking it out of the hands of co-making panel 2 because of an unbiased group that put something together requiring GFCI protection that didn't need it.
yeah.
That's
Dude,
what that means.
dude, Jacob Riddle has a really good, or Jake Riddle, sorry. He has a really good one. Dude, this one was really controversial, man. I think this one got removed in their video.
Let's see what it is. Non-spot neighbor.
Yeah,
Now,
so
any metallic parts are supposed to be bonded in. That's correct.
yeah.
It's like having a swimming pool, agriculture, anything like that. You're creating an equipotential plane for everything, and you're bonding it all back. And that basically that's what he's talking about. It doesn't make any to me. I don't care if it's a neighboring docking facility or neighboring pool or neighboring agriculture, whatever. You have to have an equipotential plane. And
Yeah,
that
it's kind of a gray area because it doesn't show like where it starts and stops with where your equipotential plane stops or starts. And you were talking about the data plane a
mhm.
lot that they worked on, and I thought they did a good job. I thought they did a good job in 555, but there was a lot of controversy in 555, and it's kind of cool. I was enjoying it, man. I was enjoying them all arguing about it, and they're basically saying no. This is a good one. Uh, they were saying no UF cable supplied to marina area now under 2023, and it said because there's no it has to have a insulated equipment grounding conductor. Well, to me that's kind of a gray area, because if you look at UF cable, even though it's bare inside the sheathing, it could pass through there. To me, it's still insulated.
Well, I'll ask this: what difference does that make?
Yeah.
And I'll explain why. Everything else is bonded in together and everything, and it's all trying to go back to where one point that you're taking it back, and it's just an equipotential plane. Or you tell me everything that's out there that's bonding in that it needs to be if you using conductors, all that needs to be insulated too. That doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. I don't
Well,
agree with that.
Well, I do agree with Jake Riddle. That is a very gray area and very deadly. And there's a lot of these areas that I feel that this is kind of the whole point why we're doing this with Code Making Panel 2, because they're going to focus on this whole GFCI thing. And to me, what it seemed like was they were just working on so hard battling against the HVAC manufacturers when they should have been going out to these boatyards and marinas and doing some research on that stuff. They're sitting there measuring leakage current at AC unit. Like, dude, no, go out there to these boatyards and marinas and.
Sure.
Well,
Now, the next part talks about the issue TIA 2013, and it says, had carved out an exception to 2020 NEC 210.8F until January 1st, 2023, a delayed effective date from the HVA itself as to when they could correct excessive leakage current to ground at 60 hertz in a mini split type HVAC and in HVACs that use power conversion or variable frequency drive to control the compressor speed. Now it says a portion of the HVAC industry failed to meet their own effective date, hoping instead to kick the can down the road. Now, first of all, there's no kicking down the road. Let me explain how this works. All right. They have a UL standard. That HVAC equipment is installed by that UL standard. It is designed by that UL standard. It's not designed by code making panel 2 arbitrarily just deciding, you know what, we want Class A GFCI protection there. And guess what? Y'all are going to fix it. Well, if I was the manufacturer of HVAC equipment, I'd say, I'm not doing that. My equipment is designed by the UL standard and it is compatible. You don't, they do, code making panel 2 does not have the right to think. They can dictate what they're going to tell a manufacturer do for utilization equipment and tell them they're going to do so and so. They don't have that right to do that. And I'll tell you another thing, the new UL standard is coming out in 2024, which I brought up before. I said, it's set at 10 milliamps. Okay. That's how the equipment's going to set. Come this next cycle, you think UL and the HVAC manufacturers are going to go out of their way to make sure by the 2026 code that they have everything done because code making panel 2 told them to?
Dude, I'll tell you what.
Got another thing coming. I got some
it was
property I can sell you in Arizona, baby.
Dude, it was a whole new level of arrogance that I was just like, whoa. It was kind of like our way or the highway. You know what I mean? And it's like, for what? Like, if they would have met them in the middle or something and said, all right, you know what? Let's just do 30 milliamp for this cycle and whatever. And then code making panel 2 tries to slip out without even putting anything in the 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa.
I'm going to get to that here in a little bit.
I was blown away. I was like, okay.
Now, if you look at that last sentence there, what do they say? Originally, code making panel 2 wouldn't buy. Now, watch this. HVAC plus the UL in action beyond that effective date in 2023 NEC 210.8F did not carry forward the exception. Oh, so now you're telling me that because you required something that the HVAC and manufacturers and UL should have jumped on that right away and just did exactly whatever it is you told them that needed to be done. And I've heard on there where he made a statement before, somebody that's on the panel, I'm not going to say his name, we dictate that you got to have that GFCI protection. I got news for you. You don't dictate nothing.
No, it's they just write the code and then they interpret it however.
That's right. Now, this is the last part of it. Now, what they tell you here, for proposed 11th hour, and it goes through all the different ones, and it says attempted to extend that effective date and modify the scope. And then it says the TIA log numbers 53 and 54 from the HVAC contractors sought not only to extend that effective date for any listed HVAC, even though UL HVAC product standards still fail to look at leakage current with absolutely no supporting data. First of all, it says about the broader range of HVAC students. First of all, you put a little task group together of GFCI manufacturers, and you determine that there's leakage current there, and all of a sudden you're going to say it has to have GFCI protection based on a kid, which it's bad that he got killed, but on a faulty installation. This wasn't like a lot of documentation come in showing this leakage current to be a problem. That's why we got the equipment ground there. It takes care of most of it.
Right.
Okay. This here, what
it should take care of all of it.
yeah, but what he's saying right here, this is false. I don't agree with anything he says right here. Okay.
Mhm.
And then he says, with absolutely no supporting data about those broader range AC units. And then he says, Dean Hunter sought to extend the effective date for solely the original issued TIA 2013 for those mini splits based on real world enforcement experience. Oh, really? Well, let me ask you something, Dean Hunter. Are you telling me on this real world experience there were a lot of people getting killed out there because of this leakage current? Where's this real world experience coming from? I've never heard an inspector that's complained that we're having people get shot, killed on these HVAC units because of this leakage current. This is all new to me. I've never heard any of this.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then the arrogance I'm talking about is how they said, no, we want to extend this because if we modify 210.8F, it will lead to hazardous exposure and I was like, what? I was like, oh yeah, I haven't heard about none of the numbers on that.
And look at this. He says proposed TIA log number 5354 failed to pass co-making panel 2, whereas their TIAs did pass co-making panel 2 in the correlating committee ballots. Yeah, I'll tell you why that was. Y'all made a big deal about this, and you failed theirs on the co-making panel 2 ballot because you wanted yours in because you're trying to push to get that GFCI protection. That's what that's about.
I agree.
That whole paragraph right there is unbelievable, if you ask me reading it.
Yeah.
But then it says, apparently, the HVAC industry didn't want the actual experience-based proposed. Really? Where's this experience-based proposed coming from?
Yeah.
It says instead appealed to overturn those in favor of their own proposed TIA. Well, I can answer this for you. All this experience base, but yet the Standards Council has slapped you on the hand and they put the TIA logs that y'all failed, they put the guy on the panel that wrote them. Or one of them, I don't know who wrote. So now he's on the panel, but yet you're going to sit here and talk about how they failed the ballot process, co-making panel 2 and all of this. And now that guy's on the is on the panel. And then it even says to solicited for more like individuals on there. So what that tells me right there, they have an imbalance on that panel.
Yeah.
That's basically the way I tell you, if I was co-making panel 2, I'd be embarrassed by this decision because
I agree
the
with that.
Standards Council slapped them down is basically what happened.
We have a good comment coming from Jake Riddle. That's like working for the EPA and tell the automotive manufacturers to transition to electric propulsion systems with combustion engine manufacturing equipment.
That's right.
It's a slow transition.
Yeah. I mean, and everything I'm just talking about here, this is arrogance right here. And trying to put all the blame on the HVAC manufacturers and UL. That's basically what all of that's saying. They put the blame on them, and co-making panel 2 washes their hands from it when they tried to make them do all these things. But I'm not done. I'm going to show you something else here. All right. Now, what I want to talk about here, and I've made this argument for a long, long time, and I'm right on this. I said, if you wanted GFCI protection for that AC unit, what section did I say it should be put in?
210.8D.
All right. Now, I want anybody watches this video, I want you to pay real close attention to everything I'm about to show you here. All right. So now in 210.8D, this is the first revision by the co-making panel 2, what they stated here. They say the proposed language will ensure GFCI protection is located in the branch circuit to provide protection to any outlet supplying the list appliances, regardless of vintage and whether or not GFCI protection is included in the appliance or in the cord. Okay. Then it says this change adds clarity to what specific appliances shall be required to have GFCI protection and the methods installers can use to provide this GFCI protection. That was their first. Now that's their first revision. So they're basically saying any items that they require to have GFCI protection, and it's regardless if they're vintage or not, we want GFCI protection. We agree with that up to this point, right?
Yeah, and this is an interesting thing where they say even if GFCI protection is included in the appliance or the cord. So what they're saying is even if you have a drinking fountain, I was like ridiculed on this really hard. So even if you have a GFCI protected water cooler, let's say, and it has its own integrated cord that has GFCI protection in it, they still want the inspector to say you need GFCI protected receptacle that it plugs into. And they even say they don't care if it has two devices on it. They're okay with that. So this is an interesting thing that is a kind of a twist. I was kind of destroyed on this a little bit.
Okay.
On the water cooler one.
Well, watch the second revision that they do. Now, this is where it gets fun. All right.
Okay.
Now, it says the reference cook appliances in the comment were at 210.8D. Now, it says, due to the nature of the hazard with these installations, the requirement was placed in 210.8D to address all outlets and not be limited to only receptacle outlets found in 210.8A. Then it says section 210.8D now includes new list items 8 through 12, as these are sometimes, look here, hardwired to outlets. Now, what does that mean right there when it's hardwired to an outlet? That's where they're going in and they got a box there and they're going in and they're making a hardwire connection.
Yep.
Okay. And then it would say, and would not be part of the GFCI requirements found in receptacles for laundry areas as part 210.8A and B. Now watch this. The shock hazard does not go away due to hardwired versus cord and plug connected equipment. Now I want to point something out. There's a reason I'm doing this. They have specifically come in and they talk about hardwired and cord and plug connected, don't they?
Well, they should be all the same because they're a branch circuit.
Sure. But my whole point is they're coming in and they specifically call these two items out. Now, if there was such a big argument over about an outlet at the AC unit, like they did here in 210.8D, don't you think they would have referenced hardwired equipment in 210.8F in their substantiation? If they take the opportunity to do it here? Well,
yeah, Jake Riddle says he believes that it may have been an existing exception for GFCI requirements. But it's this is in 2023, I think, right?
Yeah, this will be 2023. This is coming out.
In a bathroom, okay.
Now, watch this. Here is F. Now, watch what it says. The proposed language will require GFCI protection for dwelling outdoor outlets when they are replaced and will increase safety. I'm just going to breeze through this. As you're looking through this and everything, so far, looking at everything they did in the first revision, I don't see anything about hardwired there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think they need to propose some kind of thing for how to increase safety because there's no incidents.
That's right.
Like this is a totally new section.
Yeah. And here they've come in, they've done a whole bunch of stuff here, doing some explaining what they did in the second part. And looky there, once again, they don't mention anything about hardwired utilization equipment or anything. But in 210.8D, they felt the need to recognize hardwired equipment. So if I go back here to 210.8D, well, looky there, all of a sudden, they're talking about hardwired and everything, and then you come back to the first one, they talk about protecting the branch circuit or the outlet.
Right.
So
It's the same thing. I mean, just to our listeners out there, they're saying if it's an outlet, the outlet ends at the branch circuit. Why do you have to mention both?
that's right. And that's been my whole argument about this. But in my opinion, they proved my point here because in 210.8D, they went all through about hardwired outlets, all of this, but yet there's such a big argument over this on the groups and stuff, and you don't even make any mention of it. And I'll
Yeah.
even go a step further. Uh, uh, they took and had that TIA 2013 for the 2020 that was supposed to be for 2023, and they come to the first and second revision and they don't even mention it.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
now the Standard Council forces them to put it in there and modify it.
yeah, like I said, it just writes itself. And
Yeah.
now, all I like to say is this: whether you want to agree that's a termination or it's an outlet, whatever, I'm not even going to get into that right here. All I'm going to say is, why would they go the extra step here in 210.8D where they're going to add all of these
Jake Riddle just gave you a compliment.
oh, thanks, Jake. But what my whole thing when I look at this is in 210.8D, they're adding all these new items that need GFCI protection, right? And they know that you're either going to hardwire it in, and if you do that, then they're telling you go upstream and you protect it with you protect the branch circuit. They're specifically telling you to protect that hardwired piece of equipment, correct?
Right. Yeah.
And if I'm taking cord and plug connected something, then I'm providing GFCI protection either at the upstream overcurrent device or I'm doing it at the receptacle, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Now
and you could actually say the outlets at the breaker and not be wrong.
yeah.
Nobody cares. It's protected.
Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares where the outlet is?
Sure. Now,
I mean, the same goes for sump pumps. Same goes for dishwashers. Same goes for refrigerators. Same goes for any piece of utilization equipment that's specifically mentioned. Now it's microwaves in 2023.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. They're very specific on what they want GFCI protected here, and they're covering all these, even sump pumps. I mean, but now you're going to say, well, we're going to go over and look at 210.8F, and we're just going to say everything has to have GFCI protection because everything's an outlet. But yet, if that's the case, I would contend that all these items are listed here. You don't even have to call that hardwired equipment; just call it an outlet.
Yeah.
If you're going to say that, I mean, it makes no sense.
I'll take it a step further. That where is the outlet point on a sump pump?
Yeah.
Who freaking cares? Because it's specific equipment and mentioned in 210.8D.
That's right. And and when this all come out, what was the first thing I said? If you really want GFCI protection, it should be in 210.8D. I said that.
And Jake Riddle has a good one. Like, oh, dude, now we got a surge protected device direct to a breaker. And, like that's what we're saying. It's like this could go. We could get like a whole entire list of things
all day long, brother.
Yeah, and that's what's funny because a lot of these code guys, they were like, okay, well, it only is for like branch circuits, only for utilization equipment. But then they actually mentioned, like, okay, well, a transformer is not utilization equipment. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we thinking a transformer is outdoor outlet now. Okay, now a transformer is outdoor outlet. Okay, It's just whatever to fit their narrative, and it's just irritating, man.
Well, I've always said there's a reason that you have the definition for an individual branch circuit. And it specifically says, it doesn't say it goes to an outlet. It says it goes to utilization equipment. Well, if it's an outlet, then just put outlet. Don't put utilization equipment because it's an outlet anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
What difference?
It's all
does
the same thing. Like, why do you have to differentiate? And that was kind of my frustration, because if you go into industrial, and I think that's where it made me click back September 11th,
Mhm.
2021, I believe. We did a podcast about this, and I was in an industrial facility, and I'm like, individual branch circuit, no outlet, individual branch circuit, no outlet, individual branch circuit, no outlet. And these dudes are strict over there. So there's
Mhm.
a lot of hazards and stuff that they have in there. Oh,
Yeah.
and I want to give a big shout out. Any of you guys out there that have electrical businesses, go over to the Rebs group, the REBS on Facebook, Rebs group, and they have every Wednesday they have a show on how to make your electrical business better. And I really love going on there and talking about all my sweet tricks and talking about all the ways we can make money in the electrical industry.
Sure.
So always check out the Rebs group.
All right. You ready to do the 5 changes of the week?
Oh, dude, awesome. Yeah, awesome.
We've been kicking it tonight.
Dude. It looks like we finally hit on my sections I wanted to cover.
Yeah, we're in Article 300 this week, brother. We finally
Yeah.
got through 250 last week, and I knew it'd take some time to get through it all.
Right.
But all they really did here, they did a couple little things there where they up in the heading they put metal corrugated there. That just sort of helped ties them with exception 2, and all's the new exception 2 covers here. They added, and what it does, it recognizes the different construction techniques that are available. And the reason they did that, because you can utilize poured concrete on top of the metal roof decking as an example. And what pouring that concrete in there, basically what does it do? It reduces the risk of the screws penetrating into the wiring methods below.
Okay.
That's basically what it was added here, and that's where they're
No, this is a good one. This actually could be a myth. This one could be into our myths, because I've actually seen inspectors say you can't run pipe in there. I'm like, it's not roof decking; it's got concrete poured on top of it.
That's right, and this covers it, and that's why it says it's got to be in a minimum thickness of 2 inches.
Okay.
And that's from the top of the corrugated roofing decking there.
Okay, I like that one.
So that's a new
good
change that
change.
we have there. Yeah, and
we might cover that as a myth.
Oh, we can do that. Yeah, because that's why I like going over these, because I try to go in and find all the really good stuff, and if you look at what we done when we started this, I mean, we've been going for quite a few weeks now. I mean, quite a few when we started this, and we're just now getting into chapter 3 and all.
Dude, I think when we started this, we were at I don't even think we were at 10 grand on NEC for Dummies. I don't even think we're at 10,000 members.
I think when we started, we were like at 8,000, wasn't we?
Yeah, like 8,000.
Yeah. And now we're about to be at 20. Go
figure. Pretty fun.
Now this one is talking about the length of the free conductors when you're at an outlet, junction box, and switch point. And they added a new sentence in here to clarify that the free conductors is permitted to be a splice. And all this did is to clear this up where it's free from any type of interpretations or anything. So that free conductor is permitted to be a splice.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I trolled this on my Nat King Code page, and it was really funny because I got a lot of the code people. And what this was this was Mike Holt's, I think 2011 public input, that he said that the length of the free conductors should be unspliced, and it failed. And they were like, "Nah, dude, we're not doing that." Well, now Mike Holt comes back for this cycle and he puts a public input in that it actually has to have the language that says it needs to be it can be unspliced, which I thought was hilarious because the reason I trolled it in my Nat King code was because there was a myth from a bunch of inspectors saying like you have to have unspliced 6 inches. And if you don't, I'm not going to pass you. And there was a lot of heat that got had on that one. And we went in and we like kind of tangled with the inspectors on it and stuff, but we got it fixed. But it was really funny because they were all just acting like Mike Holt's public comment actually passed. So that's really funny.
What's good about this? I tell you got the option. It's spliced or unspliced.
Yep, I
mean,
agree.
It's clarified now, so there shouldn't be any arguments on this. I thought this was important to have this.
I thought it was a good change.
Yeah, I did too. All right, now the next one that you're going to be looking in here, this is where we're in 300.15, and basically they made a revision here, and what they're doing, they're clarifying that where you have a box or conduit that's installed at each outlet point, switch point, conductor junction point, conductor splice point, termination points. It could even be a transition point. And I'll get in that because I actually had a discussion on that a while back. We did.
Joseph Dumpy in the house, brother. All right, man. Thanks for joining us, sir.
But it says any of those points, it says unless otherwise permitted for wiring methods with interior access, equipment protection, type MI cable, integral closure fitting, direct barrel cover, so on and so on. It basically is going through letting you know that you have to have a box or conduit body for each one of those points. And that's where we got in and we started talking about, as a good example, the wiring method transition point. And when we did that myth, I said, they're going to come in and they're going to clarify this in the 2023 because I'd already seen the change.
Right.
And I was saying this is one of those transition points where you can actually have access. It's not where you take and pull something apart and then say you got access at that fitting. That's something Ryan Jackson said. And I said, no, that isn't right. They're talking about, like I saw one the other day, they had it was a 90 and it was for EMT and it had a little cover on it you could unscrew and they could have access to those wires. It was almost sort of like an LB in a way.
Okay.
And that's what they're talking about here. And this is where they made clarification. But the main portion of this clarification, in my opinion, is the wiring method transition point.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the next one, and you'll notice we put I'm not going to cover all this, but we even have extra language in here to further clarify about this method's transition fitting points. And you can see I wrote a whole bunch of stuff in here to help clarify that. Now,
okay,
the next one is talking about your raceway installations where they're in complete runs. And what they did, they made a revision here to clarify that the listed manufacturer assemblies that are in accordance with 604.100, basically that clarifies that the cables are permitted to be installed in raceways when they're permitted by specific cable sections. Okay. And that's what the change was. And then they also did where they talked about where you could have cables that become damaged during the installation. So what they did in that first sentence at the end, it just had installation of conductors. They also added or cables here to clarify that the conductors and cables are part of this to meet this requirement when we're talking about listed manufactured assemblies.
Oh, you're trying to get the Jake L in there. All right, Jake. I see what you're doing. I think that's what he's talking about, that cover that was removable.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of different things out there, but that's what that transition fitting is. Okay. Now the next is 300.25, and what they did, they add an exception here, and this is where we're getting into our egress lighting. And all they did was clarify that an exterior door off an exit enclosure, guess what? That's part of what? That's part of the egress, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. They're just clarifying that, and they're telling you the exterior light for that door is typically fed from that circuit, and that feeds the lights in the what? Exit enclosure.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I think that is actually going to align with the building code saying you have to have discharge on that
Yeah, it also,
door.
what it does, it also lines up with a life safety code and NFPA
Mhm.
101, and that's what
Mhm.
that informational note's for.
Yes, sir. I agree
And
with that.
and that takes care of the 5 code changes for this week.
Nice.
Boom.
Knocked them out.
Hell yeah, we did.
Dude, that's so sweet because, like, what's so awesome, I always get everyone like, hey, dude, do you know what the code changes are going to be this week? I'm like, no. Because, you know what I mean? Like, you're covering so many. And I said, well, hopefully it's like the 20 he owes me. Like, I just keep saying, like, man, like, why do you have like 2 different programs with different code changes in it? Because, what it does, it just kind of gyps you, every time. And then Jake Riddle comes in.
Because one of them was 24 hours for the state.
Jake says you're on a roll tonight.
There's some people would say I'm always on a road check. my dad said, so before he said, that boy can just, he said he was made to be an instructor. That boy can sit up there and talk all day long.
Yeah, and then he hooked up with me, and then you got like the dynamic duo of comedy here, comedy and talking about stuff a lot.
My dad will tell you, Jake, if you want to shut me up, just put some good food in front of me.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone's been calling me that, the Energizer Bunny, because they're sitting there like, oh, dude, an AC unit's an outlet. I'm like, oh, all right, whatever. I was like, yeah, prove it. And they're like, blah, 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 blah. They get all mad.
Well,
like, oh, just look at one definition. Just look at one definition. It's like, okay, whatever. I was like, oh, we could do it like 4 definitions.
Yeah, I love discussing code.
Yeah.
I love giving my interpretation. I like to see other people's interpretation too. And if I don't agree with you, I'll tell you why, whatever. But I'll tell you when I got a problem is when they start calling you names and making fun of you and saying, like they told me, I should take my publications off the market. I was a disgrace to the electrical industry and I should quit teaching. I'm a disgrace and all this. When they start that kind of stuff, that's not right, man. And anybody that's been following the threads, they know exactly what I'm talking about, and they know who the individuals are that are doing it.
Well, there's a saying that I'm gonna say. A true code guy quotes the code.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that thinks he's a code guy interprets the code. So that's what I'm saying. We've never been like a fake code guy or anything. Like, we're just sitting there going, this is what the code says. Now we can give you our interpretation, but we're not trying to be code guys and say that we're interpreting it. All we're doing is quoting it.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's what I like it. I mean, when the inspector came up, he goes, yeah, you got to support them whips. I was like, dude, they're less than 6 foot. He's like, oh, no, you got to support them. I'm like, dude, I was like, go read 330.30D, dude.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. He goes, oh, those aren't whips. I said, yeah, they are. I said, they're less than 6 foot. And so, like, then they always want to pound us with like definitions and stuff. And then it's like, okay, well, when you put the definition on them that you don't have to do something, then they're like, oh, you're just a lazy electrician. Well, yeah, because I know the definition. But the whole thing is, I'm not trying. And I told the inspector, I said, yes, sir, we'll get a support on it. And then my apprentice goes up there and he throws some ceiling wires on it. Well, it's above a cooler, so there's nothing to tie it off to.
Right.
So technically, that's not secured. It's the same as what it was. So I'm just like, okay, well, there's really
in the wind.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. I was like, I did what he said, but it's still not good. In my opinion, I'm like, okay, might as well be unsupported because that's what it is.
Hell, I remember back in the mid '80s. I remember we would take and they'd have those suspended ceilings. We'd have those little butterfly clips. And we used to go across those sealing wires, pop them on there, all the way across, and then you'd look over in that damn ceiling doing like this. And finally, and back then there was no requirements. You could actually support it to that ceiling wire, that was coming down for that suspended ceiling. And finally they got, onto that and told you couldn't do it anymore unless it was an individual for that conduit. But that's
Dude, I'll tell you a good one. So our wire is not supposed to actually be like tight onto the ceiling. It's
right.
supposed to be a little bit loose so that the ceiling's held up and then you're just holding. Well, I had one time, I didn't know this. I was just an apprentice. I was like second year apprentice. So they're like, all right, you got to put all these ceiling wires up. Like, all right. So I went and put the ceiling wires up. I'm getting them nice and tight and everything. Well, then the ceiling guys came. They put the ceiling in. They graded it, everything. And it made mine a little bit loose,
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the inspector come in. He's like, no, those ceiling wires can't be tied off to the grid. It's independent. You got to be independent of the grid. I'm like, okay. So then he goes, nope, what you have to do is you have to go through and take all your ceiling wires and cut them off the grid. And I'm like, okay. I was like, that's weird. Like, why do you have to put them up if they're cut off the grid,
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what, boy? I'm a freaking, inspector. No, you listen to me. Okay, yes, sir. So I started going through. I'm sitting there just cutting wires. Well, next thing you know, the ceiling starts grading onto my wires.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start cutting them, and I'm doing what the inspector said. Next thing you know, their whole ceiling was so jacked up. I mean, it looked terrible, and then it's like that inspector told me to do that. It would have been smart for him to just say, you know what, leave it like that. It's good to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever, but it was two inspectors that were having a pissing match with each other. Like, no, you can't do that. No, yeah, you can. No, you can't, And so then next thing you know, I go cut it off. Then next thing you know, the inspector just told me to totally jack somebody's ceiling up. And I was like a second year apprentice. So I'm like, yes, sir, right on. Let's get to go. And so that's what I love about the myth of the weeks is that we get in there, get everyone on the same page.
Sure.
And we show examples of how things got screwed up and get things
That's been
better.
awesome. I like doing all this.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for your tool, brother?
Roll it.
Let me roll it up.
It's time for Tool Review of the Week. Sponsored by Electricians Only Tool Review and Nipex Tradesman.
All right. We have a tool review this week as a special request from one of my apprentices. And this is a nut driver set from Klein. And this is a really awesome set. I own it myself. I use it a lot. I don't ask me which apprentice I stole it from. Cameron, if you're out there, I really appreciate it. This is a Christmas present to him a few years ago, and he gave it to me. And he already had a set from another guy. So I really like it. It's got the holes go all the way through, so you can run the alt thread all the way through. It has a hex shaft on it. You can't really see it in this picture, but they have a hex shaft on it, so you can put a wrench on there and you could tighten it. You could get extra leverage on it. But I would say out of all the nut drivers you can get, I would say these are probably one of the best. I couldn't think of another better nut driver set on the market than these Klein nut drivers. And like I said, these ones are made in America. I don't know how many tools are still made in America from Klein, but I will give this set 100% made in America rating.
And plus, they're magnetic.
Yeah, they have a magnet in the front. Yeah, good. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, I broke mine off because I always break the alt thread off with my nut driver, and I've always popped the magnet out. So mine's non-magnetic now, but it's still a good 7/16 nut driver.
Yeah, those I have a set of those. Those are fantastic. the reason I like them because they look old school too. You know, they look like my old school screwdrivers or thing. They're just a beautiful set.
All
And
right. Let's can you name off what the colors are from 9/16 down?
nope, don't
All right.
remember. I hadn't done it in so long.
All right. So I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna go 9/16 orange, half inch red. I'm gonna go 7/16 brown. I'm gonna go 3/8 blue. I'm gonna go. What do we have after that? We have. Did I already miss one? We
Did
got
you
5/16.
did you do
5
9/16?
5/16. Yeah, 9/16 yellow.
Yeah.
Or 9/16 orange. Half inch red. 3/8 blue. Or no, that's not 3/8. That's 7/16 brown.
Yeah.
3/8 blue. Then we go 5/16 yellow. Then what is it? 5/16. Yeah, so I kind of get lost on that. I know that last one's a 1/4 inch yellow, I believe. But I don't know. I mean, or 1/4 inch blue. I think there's two blues. There's a 1/4 inch blue and a 3/8 blue. And then 5/16 yellow. But I don't know. I mean, they all have color designations for them. But
I know they do. I just don't remember. It's been so long.
yeah, I try to do that off memory, but we might do that in a different thing, like maybe get us a little graphic for tool review or
We
do
can
the
do that.
colors of the nut drivers or whatever. But I try to remember them off the top of my head. Like we did the little motor thing over there. That was pretty cool. Do like the wedge motor colors for the points. Joseph Dunphy says Cooper Electric is featuring Klein tools in demos in my New York and New Jersey this month. Okay.
Oh, okay. I love Klein tools. I always have.
Yeah.
That's
Those
what I
ones.
started
Those
with.
ones are. That's a good buy. And Joseph, look up the insulated set that has linemen's, strippers, dikes, and I think a screwdriver. A couple insulated screwdrivers. We featured that one of our weeks. Really good deal for $100.
Yeah, it's just
I
like
like it.
working on my cars and stuff. I use Snap-on. I think Snap-on's the best, you know.
Yeah.
And when my electrical stuff, I used Klein. And
Yeah.
for channel locks, I use Channel Lock, you know.
Yeah.
And all my Kleins, my needle nose, my dikes, everything, they're all Klein. I'll tell you, I use Klein. So
Yeah.
I love
Well,
Klein, my screwdrivers, everything.
dude, we're at like 1:30. We're over an hour and 30, but
Hey, we actually are not as long as last week. We were
oh,
2
dude.
hours. Last week, Dad did a hell of a job, man.
Dude, I tell you what, like I'll tell everyone here, I always make the safety meeting go way too long because everyone gets mad at me. They're like, "Oh, you asked a question that's gonna take an hour," you know. And so I try not to ask those questions, but you know me, dude. It was so funny. NEC Live, James on NEC Live. And they're like, yeah, any questions out there? And they're like, Bill Snyder has a question. And you and Derek just start busting up laughing. Like, that's still my favorite moment. Like, Bill has a question. It's going to be a trick one or something. You know, he's going to ask something weird.
You know,
but it was funny. I like that.
I've seen some different ones. I can't catch them all the time, but they have a lot of people that come on different ones. I don't think I've ever seen one that answered as many questions as I did on that one part. I bet you I answered like 10, 15 questions.
Dude,
like,
you totally got me because I was thinking you were going to say you didn't see anyone in there that asked a question every week. Because I think I'm like 2 years solid, at least asked one question every week.
Oh no, there's always questions, but I mean, you know, when I did the calculation on overcurrent devices, man, I got flooded with all kinds of questions.
Well, yeah, and I thought it was funny because some of the guys go on there, they just put a PowerPoint presentation up and just ignore questions. And I mean, that's fine, but at the same time, it kind of like loses your credibility and your, you know.
Yeah. Derek goes, you got any problem taking questions? I said, no. Here come one, here come another, here come another. And Derek goes, all right, guys, we got to wrap this up.
Yeah, I thought that was so funny though, man. It cracked me up because I'll never forget like all my questions that I ask in like every show, and I always remember like the answers and everything, and like it's kind of a good one to ask if a class 1 transformer is required to be listed, because there's really like no like UL certified transformer builder. You know what I mean? You could just pretty much just be a dude off the street, like building transformers in your garage. And as long as you do the twists right and everything, and you get the applied voltage right, you test it, then it's pretty much good to go. So there's no real listing on the, I mean, there's nothing in the code that says it has to be listed. Like it just has to be iron, like copper stuff wrapped around
There's
iron.
nothing
And
listed on it. And,
yeah.
uh, and that's why I said it just depends on what you're talking about. If I'm talking about a transformer for a doorbell that comes as a unit, that's listed. But
Well, that's a
transformer
class
out
that's a class 2 transformer though.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You get in, you got a doorbell, something like that. Yeah, but that's a different type transformer. You can't
Well,
just apply it for everything.
it does say in class 2 that class 2 transformers are required to be listed.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. When you asked the question, I said that's a double-edged sword there. What type of transformer are you talking
I tried to mention class 1 transformer, but at the same time, it's like really that's right. Like what is the definition of a class 1 transformer versus the definition of a class 2 transformer?
That's
All
right.
they're really doing is just transforming voltage. So it was funny, man. Like my apprentice just started busting up laughing. Like I was like, check this out. Bill Snyder's gonna ask a question, and you guys just that was so funny.
Yeah, I like it. That wasn't my first rodeo to hear that question. So that's why.
You knew I was trying to rattle you. Well, what I was trying to do is I was trying to get you the shakedown and get my freaking 20 code changes that I still haven't got. Like so. What you could do is you could just add them into the 2023, Colorado continuing education class. I'll accept that if
I'm
you
just
do
going to
that.
do 24 hours. That's it.
No, I'm
I
gonna
ain't,
need.
I ain't
I'm
supplying
gonna
any
need.
more than that.
I'm gonna need 25 with those extra code changes this time.
Oh,
I'm
man.
not gonna settle for that. I'm just kidding, dude. I really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. It was really awesome. It means a lot to have like all my top people that always contribute to the group, always answer questions, always come in. Like, there's not a single person that comments on Nat King Code that I don't recognize. I don't comment back to. I think it's really awesome. And the thing is, there's literally no wrong answer. The only wrong answer, or the only answer to a question, is the question you don't ask. Like to me, I'd rather you ask a stupid question than make a dumb mistake.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm at. And I really appreciate everyone for joining us tonight. And it's been a great episode. Really,
It is.
every single night they get a little better. Well, you do actually increase a little bit more metal every time too, so I can't
Yeah.
really.
Well, I will say that tonight's topic may get addressed one more time, depending on what the Standard Council said, because we may have to address it. We may do it just as a myth of the week.
Well, we'll probably have to like talk about this more, because I'm gonna go into the state of Colorado and I'm gonna try to get this like totally removed
Well, I
from
can
the
tell
state
you
of
here in
Colorado.
Texas, it ain't happening.
Whatever I got to do to get it removed from state of Colorado, that's what I'm gonna do.
I know for a fact, state of Texas, I know they were down at the correlating committee when it all, and I think they were down at the Standards Council. I'm not 100% sure on that, but state of Texas, I can tell you, we're not happy about it at all. So,
Well, and I know that he's on CMP 17.
yeah.
And the thing is too that I know he was at the cams, and he was like, "What the heck?" Like it was bizarre. I mean, I heard there was mic drops over there. We're like, "What heck?
Mic drop.
Yeah,
You know,
now
they
we got the
posted,
mic drop now.
they posted the mic drop, and they're adding the guy to the panel that submitted the cam that you rejected. Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
there's
that's a mic drop, all right, but it was on
yeah.
the other side.
There you go. Yeah, that was definitely it. But
Oh God, that's hilarious.
dude, totally appreciate everyone for joining, and we're gonna keep trying to bring you good content, and you know, we're always gonna try to up the level, and what we're trying to do is bring you guys the actual things that you guys care about in the trade. Like, who cares about what these stuffy guys in the office say this language says, and da 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 da. And that's what's awesome about James, is he's down to earth. He's just like us. He's out there in the field. You know, you're not in the field, but you're out there looking at stuff the same way we are, just looking at it and seeing how it applies to the code. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be in the field, look at stuff and go, you know what, that ain't right. And then we could kind of break it down for you. And I really appreciate you for helping me out, you know, bust the myth. So tonight's myth is actually confirmed that the crimp style connectors could be a code violation, but the myth of the week is actually, the answer is false. It is not 100% a code violation all the time.
Sure.
It's only a code violation some of the times. And in all actuality, just make sure you read the listing and labeling instructions when you're installing your equipment.
I think we have a new one we can write for a new hashtag. It just writes itself.
All right, I'm down.
That's a good hashtag.
Dude, you know what my thing was? What my saying is?
What's that?
210.8F, a reference that was so bad it removed itself from the code.
I think that's what's eventually, because I can tell you the UL standard, UL and the HVAC manufacturers are not going to do what code making panels tell them. And come 2026, it's not going to be there. It's not going to be compatible anyway. Plus, there's going to be a lot of proposals that are going to be submitted about these definitions, and they're going to have to explain it.
Well, let's go to a new level here. This one's a new kind of stupid that I think Mike Holt brought it up pretty eloquently. You have California banning the sale of gas-powered vehicles like real soon.
Yeah.
And is that infrastructure ready to handle like like they just want to just drop it in there? And then, I mean, yeah, we're going to have like nuclear power codes coming up in the next cycle for all the nuclear power plants. We're going to have to pop up in neighborhoods everywhere to do all this power for all these electric vehicles. And they didn't think about that. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes in, and then they're all outdoor outlets, so they all have to be on Class A protection. Everyone's going to have trip breaker in the morning.
First of all, they don't have the material in place right now to make all those cars.
Yeah.
What they're thinking of, I heard on that Elon Musk, he was telling me, he goes, we don't have the material to do that.
Yeah.
He goes, you got to have a lot of silver in there so those batteries hold those charges, and they don't have it. I'm telling you, they got a problem with that.
Dude, their batteries are like $100,000 too. So, you know, your battery lasts 70,000 miles and it costs $100,000. Like that's not energy efficient right there.
And if the battery goes bad, it costs you half the car price to replace it.
Yep. Yeah.
It's really energy efficient, isn't it?
Oh, don't even get me started on some of the things they're doing, man. It's not cost effective what they're doing over there right now. So
it doesn't matter.
Did you hear my one the Willie Jackerson experiment on tax guy? So they're hiring 87,000 IRS.
I knew that, yeah.
And I did a podcast on it, and I was just talking about what's going to look like. Dude, the IRS had $1 million in ammunition.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, wow. I was like, I can't have $1 million in ammunition, but you guys can have $1 million in ammunition. I don't even want the gun. I just want the ammunition. Like, I just want to be like, yeah, just stocking up, bro. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
want to know why they need it.
yeah.
You
Well,
know, I,
it's interesting because they're the world's largest collection agency. Wow,
yeah,
why do we need that in the U.S.?
yeah. And I'll tell you, I heard something.
Where are you collecting taxes in Russia?
I listened to somebody had sent a podcast. It was to me. It was on Rumble, and what they got to talking about was there was a case, and I think it was in Arkansas or something. I don't remember exactly. I have to go back and listen to it again. But he went against the IRS and said there's no law that says he has to pay taxes, and he won. And the judge
you can get sovereign citizen status, and it's like it's totally frowned. Joseph Dumpy had a good comment in here because that's a good point about the fires on electric cars, and yeah, that is a good point, man. With the fires in detached garage, back part from the house, and
but just remember, based on the if you got a charger that's outside there, that's got to have GFCI protection. That's an outlet. That's what they're telling you.
Yeah.
It's at 20 milliamps, like that's going to work.
Yeah, like that's an interesting argument because why wouldn't they try to work on something for 2023 to have like a special purpose GFCI or something that's code compliant to where it's compatible with that equipment. And that's my whole point with this whole thing was it was just arrogance from Code Making Panel 2 where they're like, no, rejected. It's not protection of personnel. It's not for protection of personnel. It's for protection of equipment. But I guess if so that's the whole thing. That's my argument with the whole thing. Like an AC unit, where is this big hazard for personnel? I mean, like this kid jumping on the unit, that's not normal use for the manufacturer. Like that'd be my argument with the manufacturer. Be like, hey, can you tell me how that's normal use for our equipment?
Yeah.
And then, oh, well, the seal tie was underneath it. Can you tell me how that's normal installation for our equipment? Well, no, your equipment's an outlet. I didn't ask you that. They always change the question.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? And they're like, can you tell me how a dryer is the same as an AC unit? Well, like, what? Like that's what's weird about the whole thing.
Well, they can't answer your question, so they answer it with another question. And, it's just like him calling me out saying, I bet his publication says the dishwasher needs it. Yeah, it does, because it specifically calls it out. It has nothing to do with whether it's an outlet or not. It specifically says it needs GFCI protection in 210.8D. I mean, the arrogance in which they try to justify, and then you explain it to them, and then they go, no, it's an outlet.
Dude, you want to talk about arrogance? When you get a dude on YouTube that says there is no argument, there is an outlet, I'm like, okay, so there's no argument, there's no debate, your interpretation is right. I mean, that just shows you right there, that's the arrogance I'm talking about. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, there's no debate, it's your way or the highway.
That's what I'm trying to say. I got a message today on one of the threads. He said, you have no humility. He said, you're arrogant. You have a big ego, blah, blah, blah. And I replied, says, let me get this right. I have no humility, egos, all this other stuff, simply because I don't agree with your interpretation, but you don't agree with my interpretation, but you don't have one. I said, got it. I said, so basically you agree with us you're all of these things. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm calling you names and everything like that. And that all comes from that bunch over at electrical code discussion. And I'll call them out because it is them.
And the simple thing is, this is my argument, and this is really simple. The AC unit is not an outlet. It connects to the outlet.
That's right.
That's been my argument the whole entire time. So you guys could twist whatever you want. You could say whatever you want. I say the AC unit itself is not an outlet. You can call it whatever you want. By definition, it's utilization equipment, and it connects to the outlet.
That's right.
All I said was it does not connect to an outlet. There could be an outlet there. There's not, though.
And I'll tell you what, the most stupidest interpretation I've heard to date is they say it's a point. And they say that point can be anywhere on the wiring system.
Yeah, it can.
It's an infinite universe.
Then I can, if it could be anywhere, then I could put it at the breaker and it's not outdoor.
Yeah. And they say it has no size, no volume, fill requirements or anything. It just exists. That's
cool. Well, it's at the breaker. It's not outdoor. It's not required to be GFCI protected. Pretty simple.
You know, I just
that panel board has no volume, no infinite size. Like you could put like 9,000 circuits on that, whatever. You know what I mean? You could do whatever you want over at the breaker. They're like, oh no, that's an overcurrent device. That can't be an outlet. Okay, well neither can be a disconnect if you use that logic.
Exactly. I was the first that told them that. Then they told me it's at the AC unit. I said, is that outlet rated for a wet location? What the hell's that got to do with? Well, you're installing by code, not by manufacturer here.
Yeah.
That's their equipment. So if I'm over south, that's got to be a wet location, just like the raceway and the conductors that go in it.
That's a good point, because they try to do that stuff too, where they're like, no, we're going to use all the exceptions that UL gives you, but then we're going to use all the rules that the NEC gives you to say that needs GFCI protection. So just like what you're saying, they're picking and choosing.
That's right.
They're saying, okay, so we're going to say that we choose all these rules for this part, but then we choose all these rules. It's like, no, if they're like, they'll sit there and say, okay, so you have a service point.
Mm-hmm.
At that service point, nothing before that service point has to be grounded to the NEC.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the service point. Everything this side of that service point has to be grounded per the NEC.
Mm-hmm.
This over here is utility. This over here is grounded by the NEC.
Right.
Well, they'll put that line right there. That's your line. And then the line of the outlet, it could be wherever you want.
Wherever you want it.
Yeah,
and,
you know.
then Ryan Jackson kind of made interpretation, said the utility grounds the service.
Yeah.
It's like I told him, I said, you need to go over and look at the National Electrical Safety Code. They tell you that utility ground had nothing to do with that building. Yeah. I mean, they're very specific.
Yeah, it floats. Yeah.
And I don't know.
I think that I think that's an attempt to make a one size fits all for everything.
It doesn't work that way.
And that's what's hard. Like, I mean, it is cool, like being a code teacher, to just say this fits everything, but you can't do that. I mean, Mike Holt wanted to make an app that just was like really cool, where you could go and do all this stuff, and I broke that thing like easy, because I was just going in there. Okay, now change it to 14 wire, and then he's like, okay, you can't do 14 wire anymore, you know. And then I'm like, okay, change it to this. Oh, you can't do that anymore, you know. So basically, like, all the things that I wanted to do in there, you can't do anymore. He just eliminated the option to do it. Right. Well, yeah, that's fine. You eliminated the options, but then basically all it is an app that sizes AC units.
Yeah,
which is fine. It's pretty accurate, but the voltage drops a little bit off on that. Like, I think you saw that 10 horsepower motor where it was like 600 feet or something for like number 12. I was like, oh, that might be a little far.
I don't think that's going to hold it, brother.
Yeah, Joseph Dumpy has one last comment for the night. Can't think of the code citation, but I think flexible cord rule say the plug is not supposed to be used as a permanent fixed cord, but air conditioners seem to do that all the time. Same with computer multi-socket surge protectors. So yeah, good comment. And like I say, it's weird that there's all these rules in there that only apply to certain things, but then when it doesn't agree with them, then they could just change the rules and just make it apply. And
I've said it forever. Pick and
Yeah.
choose, pick and choose, pick and
yeah,
choose.
we're getting there, Joseph. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we're working on it. We're just trying to find some contradictions and try to make this all make sense to where it's good for installers, to where we're installing to code. Because if you're not installing to code, then you're getting the inspector to ignore stupid code language, and
Sure.
we're trying to avoid that at all costs.
Well, we'll get into some good stuff for 2023, and I'll, because there's a lot of stuff that happened in the 2023, and we'll go through some of that and explain it.
It's not proposed anymore.
Nope, not
Thanks
proposed anymore.
Thanks to the Standards Council.
That's right.
So,
All right, let's wrap it up. We're at 2 hours.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Everybody, have a good week. Officially, college football season starts.
There you go. Yeah, let's get the podcast going for Monday, bro.
All right, let me say this. At least the good teams are starting this week.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
everybody, have a good week and
Notre Dame, baby.
Enjoy football and everything else, and we'll see y'all next week.
Thanks for joining tonight, Joseph Dumpy. Thanks for joining tonight, Jake Riddle. Thanks for joining tonight, William Kurz. Thanks for joining tonight, NEC for Dummies. Thanks to Salt Cup Publication and Grey Boy Ames, the best in the business. Thanks to the NEC Electrical Code Ninja 2023. Thanks to the deathmatch participants. Next round coming soon. Thanks to the Lady Apprentices. Appreciate you, gals. Thanks for subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thanks to Electrical Code for Awesome Electricians. Thank you guys for joining us. Thanks to Electrician Only. Thanks to the NFPA discussion group. A lot of great topics. Thanks to Mark Pettingill. Appreciate you, Mark. Always awesome. Thanks to the High Voltage Electrical Beam. A lot of cool beams in there, you guys go check